Ramon Nose vs. Forsyth. The battle for Beecher Island, September 1868. A towering warrior stands motionless on the Colorado bluffs, his distinctive aquiline profile stark against the dawn sky below. 60 scouts dig frantically into a small island soil. With cups and plates, their Spencer rifles close at hand. The morning air crackles with tension as hundreds of dog soldiers prepare for the charge. Subscribe to Native Legends and History Stories for more untold tales of the American frontier. The wheels of progress cut deep into the Great Plains of 1868. Wagon trains stretch across the prairie like iron beads on a thread, their wooden wheels grinding new paths toward Colorado and Montana. Inside, families clutch land deeds promising free acreage. Railroad workers carry tools to lay tracks across ancient hunting grounds. Prospectors dream of gold fields waiting in the western mountains. Between the Arkansas and Platte rivers, warriors of the Plains tribes move like wind through the grass. Arapaho arrows find wagon wheels with deadly precision. Cheyenne warriors materialize from morning mist to strike at railroad camps. Kiowa and Lakota riders shadow survey parties, their presence marked only by disturbed grass and vanishing hoof prints. The scars of Sand Creek still bleed fresh in their memories. For winters past, Colorado soldiers had struck their sleeping camp. Warriors returning from the hunt found their families scattered in the bloodied snow. Now each wagon wheel, bringing more settlers westward, cuts deeper into their homeland. General Sheridan's response takes shape in unusual form instead of traditional Army units. He summons Major George Forsyth to his tent. The Civil War veteran's eyes gleam with interest as Sheridan outlines his vision. A specialized unit of scouts who can match the Indians' swift, silent warfare tactics. Forsyth and Lieutenant Frederick Beecher spend weeks selecting their men. Each candidate must demonstrate their worth, splitting playing cards with rifle shots at 50 paces, tracking week-old trails across windswept prairie, surviving 3 days in the wild with only a knife. By September, 48 men earn their place. Their Spencer repeating rifles gleam dully in the sun as they ride west from central Kansas toward Fort Wallace. On September 15th, a breathless messenger arrives at the fort. 25 warriors have struck a freight train east of their position. The scouts' horses thunder across the prairie, within the hour hooves drumming a steady rhythm. As they follow the raiders' trail toward Colorado, fresh tracks join the original path. With each passing mile, 3 riders here, 5 there, a dozen more merging from a hidden valley. The sun sets blood red on September 16th as Forsyth's men make camp along the Arikaree River's southern bank. Their horses graze quietly in the gathering dusk. None of them notice the Lakota scouts watching from distant bluffs, counting their numbers before slipping away to a massive encampment of dog soldiers nearby. At their camp, Ramon Nose's presence commands attention without a word. Standing over 6 feet tall, the warrior's frame towers over his fellow dog soldiers. His prominent nose, which earned him his name among white settlers, catches the firelight as he listens to the scouts' report. His warriors whisper that his medicine makes him invincible. In battle, no bullet can find him, as long as he maintains his sacred rituals. The warriors plan to strike at dawn, but young braves grow restless. In the pre-dawn darkness of September 17th, their attempt to capture the scouts' horses fails. A startled mount's whinny shatters the night's silence. Rifle shots crack across the river as Forsyth's men scramble awake. The scouts race for a small island in the river's center, leaving tracks in the morning dew. They tie their horses to sparse bush and attack the ground with whatever tools they can find. Spoons scrape shallow trenches, tin plates become shovels. Bare hands claw at the earth, desperately trying to create rifle pits. Before the main assault begins, the first charge comes as the sun crests the horizon. Dozens of warriors thunder down the hillside, their horses' hooves throwing clods of earth. As they split into 2 groups along the river banks, Spencer rifles answer from the island, mechanical clicks of livering actions, followed by sharp reports. Warriors fall from their mounts, but others push forward until the withering fire forces them back. The cost is heavy on both sides. Lieutenant Beecher lies still in a half-finished rifle pit. 3 other scouts sprawled nearby in the bloody soil. The unit's doctor gasps his last breath, hands clutched over a mortal wound. Forsyth himself fights through the pain of 3 separate injuries, directing his men as 200 to 1,000 warriors mass on the bluffs above. Among them stands Romang Nose, watching the island through the rising gun smoke as his dog soldiers prepare for the next assault. The morning's failed charge transformed into a deadly game of patience. Cheyenne warriors melted into the tall grass along both river banks, their rifles crackling with precise shots. One by one the scouts' horses collapsed, their bodies adding to the growing barriers around the rifle pits. In the warrior camp, Romang Nose sat alone, his towering frame bent in contemplation. The previous evening's events weighed heavily on his spirit. Unknown to him, the bread he'd consumed had been tainted by an iron fork's touch, breaking his sacred protection ritual. For years, his power in battle had been guaranteed by rules: never shake a white man's hand, never eat food touched by iron. Now that protection lay shattered by a simple meal. Cheyenne and Sioux leaders gathered around him, their voices urgent with pleading. "Your warriors need you," they insisted. "Your presence alone will drive them to victory." Romang Nose remained unmoved, his eyes fixed on the distant island. The warriors' appeals grew more desperate, until finally one voice cut through the rest. "Has the great Romang Nose become a coward?" The words hung in the air like gun smoke. Romang Nose rose to his full height, his expression hardening into the mask of a warrior, accepting his fate without a word. He began preparing for battle, painting his face with the sacred colors, braiding his long hair, donning his finest war shirt, adorned with scalp locks and medicine symbols. Warriors gathered on the dry riverbed south of the island, their ponies stamping impatiently in the morning heat. Sharpshooters concealed themselves in the prairie grass along the opposite bank, their rifles ready to pin down the scouts. During the charge, Romang Nose mounted his war horse, its mane braided with eagle feathers that caught the sunlight. The charge began with a thunder of hooves on dry earth. Romang Nose led from the front, his war lance raised high, his powerful voice carrying the war cry. Across the river, the island's defenders huddled in their rifle pits, Spencer rifles trained on the approaching warriors. At the island's edge, the scouts' discipline held. Their first volley erupted as one, a sheet of lead and flame that cut through the charging line. Warriors tumbled from their ponies, but others pressed forward. Another volley crashed out. More warriors fell. Still they came on. Romang Nose drove his horse forward through the chaos, seemingly untouchable as bullets whinned past. Then at the height of the charge, his medicine failed. A single shot found its mark. The great warrior pitched sideways, falling into the riverbank brush. As his war horse galloped past riderless, the warrior line fractured, scattering in all directions from the deadly fire. Inside the defensive perimeter, Forsyth turned to his chief scout Grover, his voice tense with urgency. "Can they mount a stronger attack than that?" Grover, his face streaked with powder smoke, shook his head. 20 years I've lived on these plains. Boy and man never seen anything to match this." "Then we have them," Forsyth replied, grimacing as he adjusted his wounded leg. Cheyenne braves found Romang Nose in the riverside brush, still breathing. They carried him reverently to high ground above the river bed, where medicine men attempted to save him. As evening shadows lengthened across the battlefield, the great warrior breathed his last, his prophecy fulfilled. The warriors maintained their siege, but their heart for frontal assault died with Romang Nose. By day's end, roughly 20 scouts lay dead or wounded. The island's horse carcasses attracted swarms of flies. In the late summer heat, the defenders had ammunition in plenty and could reach river water, but food and medical supplies were non-existent. That evening, Major Forsyth called for volunteers. They needed someone to reach Fort Wallace, over 70 miles distant through enemy-held territory. 2 men stepped forward. 19-year-old Jack Stillwell, his young face already hardened by frontier life, and Pierre Trudeau, a weathered French-Canadian scout, whose eyes had seen decades of frontier warfare. As darkness fell, they prepared for their desperate mission. Under night's protection, Stillwell and Trudeau ghosted away from the island, their bodies melting with the dark earth. 3 miles they crawled, measuring each movement, like grains of sand through an hourglass. Daylight forced them into hiding, emerging only in darkness for 5 consecutive nights. A buffalo's sun-bleached remains became their unlikely shelter, its hollow carcass shielding them from searching eyes. Their temporary refuge held danger. A rattlesnake's scales rasped against bone. A bullet's report would alert the warriors. The snake's warning could betray their position. Stillwell answered with a mouthful of tobacco juice, blinding the serpent's eyes and burning its mouth. The snake withdrew, leaving them alone in their macabre hideout on the island. Misery deepened with each passing hour. Merciless sun scorched exposed skin, while night brought bone-chilling cold. Sharp-eyed warriors concealed in the grass claimed any scout who dared lift his head. Fallen horses rotted under the prairie sky, their decomposing flesh becoming the scouts' only sustenance. Thick swarms of flies darkened the fetid air. 2 more scouts tried breaking through the siege under darkness but returned unsuccessful. Unsure of Stillwell and Trudeau's survival, John Donovan and Allison volunteered for another desperate run. That night, as the new runners departed, Stillwell and Trudeau finally abandoned their grisly shelter, pushing onward toward Fort Wallace. Salvation appeared with the dawn. To 10th Cavalry troopers patrolling a wagon road at Fort Wallace, the exhausted runners joined a relief party. Without rest, Donovan and Pinley also reached safety. The following day, Donovan led 5 volunteers back toward the battle, meeting Colonel Carpenter's 10th Cavalry Company. During their march September 25th, 10 o'clock island sentries spotted approaching riders. Through heat-shimmered air, Colonel Carpenter's relief force materialized from the morning mirages. Forsyth, his wounds evident in every movement, called out with hard-won humor, "Welcome to Beecher's Island." The bitter siege claimed 6 scouts over 9 days. Initial counts suggested 35 Cheyenne and Sioux fallen, but subsequent interviews recorded only 9 warrior deaths. The island itself proved as temporary as human monuments. In 1935, 3 decades after the first memorial's placement, raging waters claim both marker and sandbar. A 1976 monument now stands sentinel near the vanished battlefield, honoring Forsyth's men. No stone marks the valor of Roman Nose or the Cheyenne and Sioux warriors who defended their ancestral lands. Only a simple path bearing Roman Nose's name traces the ground where prairie grass bends beneath the weight of unspoken histories. The prairie holds these memories in its soil, where sunlight and shadow paint pictures of the past. Each dawn brings new light to old stones. Each sunset carries whispered tales of those who stood their ground on both sides of the river. Follow native legends and history stories as we uncover the untold chapters of America's frontier past.